You have already crossed the threshold. There is no return. Look at you, sitting in the armor of your own expertise. You stopped being a student the day someone called you good. That was the day you started dying. Every year since, you've been adding layers to what you already know, calling it growth, while the world moved in directions you refused to see. You are not experienced. You are calcified. The armor you wear is not protection. It is a prison. The man who knows everything cannot learn anything, and the man who cannot learn anything is already a corpse, wearing the face of the living. Take off the armor. The vessel is sealed, beautiful on the outside, lacquered, polished, presented with pride, but sealed. Nothing enters, nothing leaves. And inside, what was once fresh has been sitting so long it has begun to rot. This is your mind. You sealed it the moment you decided you had arrived. You stopped asking questions because questions felt beneath you. You stopped listening because listening implied someone else might know something you did not. The seal feels like dignity. It is decay. Unseal the vessel. Let the air in. What is truly good does not rot when exposed. Only what was never as good as you believed. Look at the path. It was once clear. Walked with the eagerness of someone who did not yet know where it led. Now moss covers every stone. The edges have collapsed. The overgrowth has erased the center. This is what happens to the mind of the man who stopped being a beginner. The path of learning does not maintain itself. It requires the daily foot of the student, the curious, humble, forward-moving step of someone who knows they have not arrived. Your path is overgrown because you stopped walking it. Not because you reached the end. There is no end. You simply stopped. Start walking again. The green branch bends, the dry branch breaks. You have spent years becoming dry, hardening your opinions, calcifying your methods, building walls around what you already know and calling them standards. But standards built on old knowledge are not standards. They are brittle walls protecting a smaller and smaller territory. The world changed, your competitors learned, your field evolved. And you remained, dry, rigid, certain. The storm that breaks you will not be external. It will come from within. From the moment you realize that everything you were so certain about has already been surpassed. Stay green. Stay breakable in the right ways. Or become the dry branch. The ink has dried. You stopped grinding the stone the day you decided your understanding was complete. Now the surface is hard, the brush cannot load, and whatever you attempt to write is a faint echo of what the brush could do with fresh ink. Fresh ink requires daily grinding. Daily grinding requires daily humility. The admission that today's work is not yet done, that yesterday's understanding is not enough for today's challenge. You are attempting to write your future with dried ink. The words come out faint and brittle. Grind the stone. Admit that the work is not done. It never was. It never will be. Grind. The dojo door is locked, not by an enemy, not by circumstance, by you. You locked it the day you decided you no longer needed a teacher. The day you decided your rank meant you had outgrown the basics. The day you began entering the dojo as a master rather than as a student. The basics you abandoned are the foundation everything else stands on. And without maintenance, foundations crack. The master who refuses to return to basics is not a master. He's a man standing on a crumbling floor, too proud to look down. Unlock the door. Go back to the beginning. The beginning is not beneath you. You are beneath it. You cannot see what your expertise is hiding from you. This is the cruelest aspect of mastery without humility. The better you become, the less you can see. Your patterns recognize patterns. Your categories sort everything into what you already know. Your experience filters out everything that does not fit your existing map. The beginner sees everything because they have no map. The expert sees only what confirms the map. You have been walking the same territory for so long that you have stopped noticing it has changed around you. Take off the blindfold, not your skill, your certainty. The skill stays. The certainty must go. You carry the blade of a master. You have the title, the history, the reputation. But when was the last time you truly sharpened it? Not polished the surface, sharpened the edge. The edge that only comes from returning to the whetstone with the humility of a beginner. The master who sharpens his blade every day remains sharp. The master who relies on his reputation has a beautiful blade that cannot cut. Reputation is the scabbard. Sharpness is the steel. You have been maintaining the scabbard while the steel inside grows dull. The title means nothing if the edge is gone. Sharpen every day like it is your first day, because it is. You have heard the teaching, the full cup cannot receive. But you heard it as a story about other people, the arrogant ones, the obviously closed ones. You did not recognize yourself in the full cup because your fullness is sophisticated, dressed in the language of nuance, in the appearance of open-mindedness, in the performance of consideration. But the result is the same. Nothing new enters. The cup that cannot receive cannot grow, and the cup that cannot grow will be left behind by every cup that can. Empty yourself, not of skill, not of knowledge, but of the certainty that your current understanding is enough. It is never enough. That is not a weakness. That is the way. Before the first stroke, the paper holds everything. Every possible line, every possible character, every possible world exists in the white space before the brush falls. The moment the first mark is made, the possibilities begin to narrow. By the time the page is full, only one version of the possible exists. Your mind works the same way. The beginner's mind is white paper. Everything is possible. Every teacher has something to offer. Every experience carries a lesson. The expert's mind is a filled page, searching for the few remaining white spaces while missing the richness of what surrounds them. Find your white paper again. Somewhere inside the filled page, it still exists. The beginner has one advantage the master has forgotten. He knows he does not know. This knowledge and this clear-eyed awareness of his own ignorance is not a weakness. It is the most powerful learning state available to a human being. It opens every door. It makes every teacher relevant. It turns every experience into instruction. The master who has forgotten this advantage is working with half the tools available to him. He is solving today's problems with yesterday's solutions and wondering why the results are insufficient. The beginner's advantage is available to you right now, not by forgetting what you know, but by holding it more lightly. Know what you know, and know that it's not enough. The stream does not stop flowing because it has already passed through this valley before. It does not say, "I know this ground, I have been here, I do not need to move." It flows, always. Every pass through the same valley is a different pass, different season, different volume, different mineral, different temperature. The stream that flows finds the ocean. The stream that stops becomes a stagnant pool. Your knowledge is the stream. It must keep moving. Not because what you know is wrong, but because what you know is incomplete. It is always incomplete. Everything you have learned so far is preparation for what you have not learned yet. Keep flowing. The most senior student in the dojo is still at the front, still practicing the first form, still asking questions that a beginner would ask, not because he has forgotten the advanced material, because he knows that the first form contains everything, and that every time he returns to it, he finds something he missed before. This is not false modesty. This is the understanding that mastery is not a destination, but a direction, and the direction always points back toward the beginning. The man who has truly mastered something is the one who has returned to the beginning so many times that the beginning and the mastery have become the same thing. The deepest lessons are in the most ordinary things. The water droplet contains the physics of the ocean. The single brush stroke contains the philosophy of a lifetime. The one correct breath contains the entire practice of breath. But you have stopped looking at ordinary things. You look past them, past the drop, past the stroke, past the breath, searching for the advanced teaching, the secret technique, the insight that only years of experience can reveal. It is already revealed. It is in the drop. The beginner sees it because he looks. The expert walks past it because he already knows what a drop is. Look again, for the first time. Every person in every room knows something you do not. The child knows something about wonder that you have forgotten. The failure knows something about resilience that the successful man has never needed to learn. The beginner in your field sees something in it that your expertise has made invisible to you. The man of SHOSHIN enters every room as a student, not performing humility, not pretending ignorance, but genuinely open to the possibility that whoever is in front of him has something worth receiving. This openness is not weakness. It is the most sophisticated form of intelligence available. The man who can learn from everyone learns everything. The man who can only learn from equals learns half. Every tradition that lives does so because someone in every generation was humble enough to receive it fully, not to edit it before understanding it, not to improve it before mastering it, not to teach it before living it. The tradition dies when the student decides he already knows enough to skip the parts that feel slow. The parts that feel slow are the roots. And when the roots are skipped, the tree that grows is beautiful and hollow. You are part of a chain. Before you, men devoted entire lives to what you dismiss as obvious. After you, someone will receive what you pass on, or will not if you passed on nothing. Receive fully, then transmit fully. The chain depends on you. Close your eyes. Think of the room you left, the class, the practice, the teacher, the discipline, because you decided you were past it. You told yourself you had outgrown it, but had you? Or had it simply started to reveal the limits of what you actually knew, and leaving was easier than facing those limits? The room is still there. The practice is still happening. people who stayed are still growing, and you're here, calcified at the level you were when you walked out, calling it mastery, calling it moving on, calling it anything but what it was. What was it? Pride. And pride cost you everything that room still had to give. Think of every correction you refused, every feedback you dismissed as wrong, as irrelevant, as coming from someone who did not understand your level. Some of those corrections were wrong, but not all of them. And the ones that were right, where are they now? Buried under the weight of your need to already be correct. You cannot afford to be wrong, because being wrong means the armor has a crack. So you argue, you explain, you reframe, you find the flaw in the messenger, so you do not have to receive the message. The correction you refused last year could have saved you from the failure you experienced this year. How many more refusals can you afford? You remember them, the student who started after you, who you taught or watched or dismissed, who seemed to be behind until they were not, who passed you, not because they were more talented, but because they never stopped treating themselves as a student. While you were protecting your position, they were improving their practice. While you were managing your reputation, they were absorbing every lesson available. While you were being an expert, they were being a learner, and now they are ahead. This is not their success story. This is your failure story. The story of what pride cost you when it mattered most. Let it burn. Then let it teach you. The opportunity saw your pride before you saw the opportunity. It came dressed as a question you should answer, a situation you should learn from, a person you should listen to. And you dismissed it too quickly, too confidently, with too much certainty about what it was before you had truly seen it. Opportunities do not announce themselves as opportunities. They arrive as inconveniences, as challenges to what you know, as invitations to be a beginner again. The man with SHOSHIN recognizes them. The proud man walks past them. Count the ones you have walked past this year. Then count the ones you will walk past next year if nothing changes. The math is not encouraging. Look at the pattern of your relationships. The teacher who stopped offering correction, not because you no longer needed it, but because you made the cost of offering it too high. The peer who stopped sharing ideas, not because they ran out of ideas, but because you dismissed too many of them. The student who stopped asking questions, not because they stopped having questions, but because your impatience with basic questions made them feel the questions were beneath the relationship. Arrogance is not loud, it is quiet and gradual. A slow narrowing of the space where real exchange can happen until the space is so small that nothing meaningful can enter or leave. Look at the pattern, then change it. The gold that fills the crack is not applied by the proud hand. The proud hand denies the crack, covers it, hides it behind performance and reputation, and the carefully maintained appearance of wholeness. Only the humble hand can apply the gold, because the humble hand first acknowledges the crack, then holds it up to the light, then decides to make it beautiful rather than invisible. Your cracks are not your shame, but your refusal to acknowledge them is. The gold is available, the repair is possible, but it requires the one thing that pride will not allow, the honest admission that the crack exists, that you made it, and that you need to make it beautiful. Be humble enough for gold. The bell calls the student, not the master. the student. The master who has forgotten he is a student has also forgotten how to hear the bell. It rings every day, in the correction that stings, in the result that disappoints, in the peer who does something you had not considered, in the student whose question reveals a gap in your own understanding. These are the bell's tones. They are calling you back to the beginning, not to diminish what you have built, to remind you that what you have built is a floor, and above it, the building continues without limit. Hear the bell, answer it. Go back to school. The school never closes for those willing to attend. Stand under the cold water and let it wash away everything you think you have already earned. The titles, the rankings, the accumulated proof that you have arrived. Let the water take them, not permanently, not as rejection, but as practice. The practice of returning to zero, of standing before the mountain without the armor of reputation between you and the rock. This is the most terrifying practice available to the experienced man, and the most necessary, because the man who can return to zero and begin again is unstoppable. He has no position to defend, no reputation to protect, only the work and the willingness to let the work be enough. Stand in it. Return to zero. Begin. Every morning is the first morning. This is not poetry. This is protocol. Before you open your eyes fully, before the day's identity assembles itself, before the accumulated weight of your expertise settles back onto your shoulders, there is a moment of pure beginner. Use it. In that moment, ask, what do I not know today that I will need to know? What assumption am I carrying that deserves to be examined? What would I do differently if I were approaching this for the first time? The beginner's mind does not require ignorance. It requires the daily decision to hold knowledge lightly enough to let new knowledge enter. Every morning, first thing, beginner. Ask the question you are embarrassed to ask. The question that reveals the gap. The question that proves you do not know what everyone assumes you know. This question is not your weakness. It is your greatest available tool. Because the question you are embarrassed to ask is exactly the question that, when answered, will move you most. Pride has made you silent in the rooms where you most needed to speak. It has made you nod when you should have asked. It has made you pretend comprehension when confusion was the honest response. The cost of that pretense compounds daily. Ask the question. The gap it reveals is not a shame. It is the exact location of your next growth. Return to the basics, not as a punishment, not as a regression, as a daily act of integrity, the acknowledgement that the basics are not basic. They're the entire practice, compressed. Every advanced technique is the first technique, applied with more understanding. Every sophisticated insight is the beginner's observation, followed further. The man who returns to the basics daily finds something new in them daily, because he brings new eyes each time. The man who abandoned the basics for advanced material finds the advanced material growing hollow, because its roots have been cut. Return, not down, forward. The basics are in front of you, not behind you. They go further than you have yet gone. Enter the practice space empty. Whatever the day before contained, the success, the failure, the correction received or refused, the lesson learned or missed, leave it at the door. The practice space is for practice, not for the management of what practice has already produced. The man who enters practice with yesterday's success is protecting it, not adding to it. The man who enters practice with yesterday's failure is defending against it, not learning from it. Both are full. Both cannot receive. Empty yourself at the door. Enter as if for the first time. What the practice has to teach today is different from what it taught yesterday. Be empty enough to receive it. The work that no one sees is the most important work. The return to basics that happens before anyone arrives. The question asked in private that would feel embarrassing in public. The admission made to oneself that the understanding is incomplete. The practice undertaken not to perform mastery, but to actually achieve it. The proud man does his most visible work in public and his least honest work in private. The man of SHOSHIN does his most important work in private and lets the public results speak for themselves. Be a student in private. The mastery will show itself without your help. It always does when the private work is honest. The gate into not knowing is not a defeat. It is the entrance to the only territory where real growth exists. Beyond what you already know, beyond the comfortable boundaries of your current map, in the territory that your expertise cannot yet navigate. That is where the next version of you is waiting. The man of SHOSHIN passes through this gate willingly, even eagerly, not because he enjoys confusion, but because he has learned that confusion is the texture of real learning, that the discomfort of not knowing is always followed by the expansion of knowing if you stay in it long enough. Pass through the gate of not knowing. Stay until the mist clears. It always does. Every day the ink falls on new paper. This is the practice of SHOSHIN, not the performance of humility, but the genuine daily renewal of the beginner's stance. Not the abandonment of what you know, but the refusal to let what you know become a wall. The ink that falls today is informed by every stroke that came before it, but it falls fresh, without the weight of the previous strokes determining where it must go. This is the paradox of SHOSHIN. The more you know, the more powerfully you can hold it lightly. The expert's knowledge, held with beginner's mind, becomes extraordinary. The expert's knowledge, held with expert's pride, becomes a ceiling. Hold it lightly. Let the ink fall fresh. There is no summit where SHOSHIN is no longer needed. The stairs continue, and on every flight of stairs, the man of SHOSHIN is a beginner, not at the level of skill, but at the level of openness. He does not know what this flight will teach him. He does not assume the lesson will be what he expects. He simply climbs, attentive, available, open to correction. This is the discipline that separates the practitioner who grows forever from the one who plateaus. Not talent, not intelligence, not even effort, but the sustained willingness to remain a student at every level of the climb. Climb, stay open. The stairs teach differently at every altitude. Your openness is the sharpest thing you possess, sharper than your skill, sharper than your knowledge, because openness is what keeps the skill and the knowledge from becoming a ceiling. The blade that is continually sharpened, returned daily to the stone, held always at the correct angle, never left a rust in the comfort of its past sharpness. That blade remains useful. That blade remains dangerous. That blade remains alive. Your openness to learning is the whetstone. Your daily return to the beginner's stance is the sharpening. Without the stone, the blade is only memory. With the stone, the blade is always now. Remain open. Remain sharp remain now. The eternal student's light does not dim with time. It brightens, because every year of genuine learning adds fuel to the flame rather than smothering it under the weight of certainty. You are no longer the person who stopped learning. That person was a phase, necessary perhaps, for you to understand what it cost. What you are now is the person who chose to return, not because you had to, because you understood what the alternative was. The lantern you carry now burns differently than the lantern you carried as a beginner. It burns with the combined fuel of everything you know and the openness to learn more. That combination is the rarest light there is. Carry it carefully. Let it guide others. Every morning, a new sprout. Not metaphorically, literally. The man of SHOSHIN wakes up as a beginner in the most important sense. Open, curious, without the weight of yesterday's certainty, determining today's possibility. This is not naivety. This is the most sophisticated form of intelligence. The ability to bring everything you know to bear on a situation, while holding it lightly enough that new information can still change your conclusion. The sprout does not fight the ice of old assumptions. It simply grows until the ice has no choice but to yield. You are the sprout. The ice is every calcified belief you have been carrying. Grow. Every morning. Unstoppable. The man of SHOSHIN leaves something in every room he enters. Not the weight of his expertise, but the lightness of his genuine curiosity. People feel it before they understand it. He asks questions that no one else is willing to ask. He receives correction without deflection. He credits the lesson regardless of the messenger. This presence, this learning presence, is the most attractive quality a developed person can carry. It says, "I am not finished," and in saying that, it opens every door, invites every teacher, receives every lesson the room has to offer. Be this presence, not as a strategy, as a way of being. The smoke rises from genuine fire. Let it rise. These marks were not made in a single session of inspiration. They were made daily. In the sessions after the title was earned, in the practices after the peak was reached, in the mornings after the world said you no longer needed to train. The man of SHOSHIN keeps making marks, not to prove something, not to perform dedication, because the practice is the point, and the practice requires the daily return to the beginner's stance, the daily willingness to be corrected, the daily admission that yesterday's marks are not enough for today's work. Your marks are beautiful. Make more. Tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, forever. The bowl that has been broken and mended many times is the bowl that knows how to receive. It has been emptied completely of pretense, of the performance of wholeness, of the pride that made the original crack inevitable. What remains is a vessel that is simultaneously stronger and more humble than it was before it broke. This is the man of SHOSHIN who has lived enough to understand what the alternative costs. Strong because of what he knows, humble because of what he knows he does not know. The bowl is full of gold and empty of pride. That is the combination that makes it worth filling again and again. Be worth filling. Let the tea be poured. The view from here is better than it has ever been, not because you have arrived, but because you can finally see how much further there is to go. The proud man on the mountain sees the peak and calls it the summit. The man of SHOSHIN sees the peak and sees that it opens onto a larger mountain. And beyond that, another. And beyond that, another still. This is not discouraging. This is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen, because it means the learning never ends. The adventure never closes. The beginner's surprise, the gift that pride had taken from you, is returned permanently to the man who chooses to remain a student forever. Look up. There's more. There's always more. The video ends here, but Shoshin does not. Shoshin is not a state you achieve. It is a choice you make every morning, in every room, before every teacher, in front of every correction. The choice to remain a student, not because you are not yet good enough, because you understand that good enough is the end of growth, and the end of growth is the beginning of decay. Put the device down. Enter the next room as a student. Ask the question you are afraid to ask. Receive the correction you have been avoiding. Return to the beginning, not as retreat, as the most advanced move available to you. The beginning is always ahead. Shoshin.